Welcome back to the course. I hope you are enjoying the course in terms of studying some new concepts, new ideas, and new solutions. This is the week 4 of the course Privacy and Security in Online Social Media. What I thought I'll do now is continue the topic on privacy that we were talking last time. Just to let you know, we are in the topic of privacy for now. We've just covered the trust and credibility. And I assume by now you're all very well versed with a little bit of a Linux, a little bit of a Python, how to collect data from Twitter, how to store the data, what kind of MySQL queries you should write in collecting data and all that. In the last week, we saw about how Westin categorized the US citizens into 3 categories: fundamentalist, pragmatist, and unconcerned. Fundamentalist being 25%, pragmatist being 60%, and unconcerned being 15%. Fundamentalists are the people who actually don't give away any personal information. Pragmatists make decisions about privacy, keeping the situation in mind. Unconcerned are the set of people who gave away personal information and be part of revealing personal information is about 15% in the US. I kind of asked you a couple of questions last time about some data that was collected among a large set of population in India. So this is one of the questions that I asked, which is, what do you feel about privacy of your personal information on your online social network, which is about Facebook. About 42%, the highest was about 42%, who said that my privacy settings, since I've specified my privacy settings, my data is secure from a privacy breach. And another question that I asked you also is about, if you receive a friendship request on your most frequently used online social network, which is Facebook in this case, which of the following people will you add as friends? And the highest was actually person of opposite gender. I'm pretty sure in the last couple of weeks, going through the class that you're taking on social network now, even your own behavior may be changing. You may be looking at some of these requests more closely. You may be devising a mechanism by which any friend request that you get, how you're going to accept it or how you're going to deny it. The data is publicly available. Please feel free to actually play around with the data. So last time I left you with a question saying, what are the kind of privacy issues that you have on Facebook? How do you define privacy? I think it's nice to see some of you posting information about various Facebook privacy issues or your own questions about Facebook privacy issues on the forum. We should actually make the forum more active, because I think there are some very repeated questions that comes up. We're trying to answer as much as possible, but when they are very repeated, we kind of avoid actually answering also. I strongly recommend you to check the forum before posting the question. So let's look at what privacy is a little bit, and then we'll delve in detail about some research that was done in terms of analyzing the privacy status on Facebook. So one of the definitions that was given earlier about privacy was that privacy's value is so complex, so entangled in competing and contradicting dimensions, so engorged with various and distinct meanings that I sometimes despair whether it can be usefully addressed at all. So that was Robert talking about privacy in his book, 3 Concepts of Privacy. But I think the privacy by definition is actually hard. Meaning, if you were to look at what privacy is for you while sitting and listening to this lecture versus privacy in your school, privacy at home, privacy at work is very different. It's very hard to define what privacy is for a particular individual across various situations. That's what this definition is actually trying to capture. Contradictory dimensions, so entangled in competing and contradicting dimensions. So fundamentally, privacy has been always talked about control over information. Here are 2 definitions that Alan Westin actually tried defining in his book, again, Privacy and Freedom in 1967. Privacy is the claim of individuals, groups, or institutions to determine themselves when, how, and to what extent information about them is communicated to others. So it's basically about to determine for themselves how much of my information I can actually share with others. Each individual is continually engaged in personal adjustment process in which he balances the desire for privacy with the desire for disclosure and communication. Right? How much do I want to reveal about myself? How much do I want to actually anonymize information about myself? How much do I want to reveal about myself is the way privacy is defined, and is the way by which you're controlling the information that you're actually spreading. Right? So I'm sure you kind of get the definition of privacy, which is very hard to define, and also it is very difficult to actually come up with a list of privacy expectations for any individual in all given contexts. Basically, keep in mind, privacy is about control over information. Sometimes it could be actually a group information also. Given that India is more a collectivist society, we generally talk about a privacy of a group instead of individual privacy. There are societies where it's individualistic society, where the privacy information of the individuals are more protected than the privacy information of the group. Some forms of privacy that people have come up with: the information privacy, communication privacy, territorial privacy, and bodily privacy. Majority of the times when we talk about privacy, particularly in courses like these, it is always referred to as information privacy, and particularly the internet privacy. There's also communication privacy, which is through telephones and other forms of communication. Territorial privacy is about my living space, my home, my city, my country, and topics around that. Bodily privacy is about self. So information about my own physical presence is actually also discussed in the concept of privacy. For example, CCTV cameras is one good example where bodily privacy can be actually attacked. Now let's look at some specific studies that have been done in terms of analyzing the privacy in online social networks. Here is a study that I'll walk you through. The reference to the study is at the end of the deck of slides. Let me walk you through what they did, what did they find, how revealing the informations are, how good the study was, and how the privacy is being actually studied in the context of Facebook and social networks and publicly available information. Some background about pictures that are uploaded on social networks itself. In the year 2000, 100 billion photos were shot worldwide. In 2010, 2.5 billion photos per month were uploaded by Facebook users only. Whereas if you remember the first lecture 1, where I actually showed you a infographic about what amount of information is uploaded on social networks in 1 minute, we actually saw that 1.8 billion photos were uploaded every day on Facebook, Instagram, Flickr, Snapchat, and WhatsApp together. So that's a lot of information, lot of pictures that are actually uploaded on social networks. Companies like Facebook, Microsoft, Google, Apple have actually acquired a lot of face recognition companies in the last few years to study, to understand, to use these technologies to identify faces on pictures that have been uploaded on our social networks or on their services. It has become very, very important to apply these kind of techniques like machine learning, deep learning, and concepts around that into these images to study what is happening on online social networks. I actually recently wrote also a blog about the importance of images on online social networks. I'll actually share it on the forum just after this lecture. If you really look at what is going on currently in terms of these pictures that are uploaded and the privacy about individuals, increasing public self-disclosures through online social networks are happening, which is I take a picture, I take a selfie standing near one of the important spots, let's take in Delhi, I upload this picture, you know that I'm in Delhi. Or let's take, I take a picture next to Taj Mahal and upload it on my Facebook account, you know that I'm actually traveling to Taj Mahal now. There used to be actually a site called pleaserobme.com. I don't think so the website is active now. This website, what they did was, it's called pleaserobme.com. What they interestingly did was, let's take if I have a Twitter account and I created it from Delhi and I'm posting about weather in Chennai or Hyderabad or California, they would actually pick this tweet and post it on pleaserobme.com, saying that this account was originally created from Delhi, and whereas now this post is actually talking about weather in California, so you probably are not at home, and therefore your home should be robbed. It got flagged a lot, but I think it's an interesting idea that they actually picked up to make use of the information that the users of social network are disclosing by themselves about their location. That's a self-disclosure through online social networks, and there are many, many issues that are going on around because of self-disclosure of information on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and other networks. Parallelly, in one side, this increase in public information is going on. In parallel, there is also increase in face recognition accuracy. Meaning earlier the accuracy was lower, now there are technologies that have actually improved. In particular, if you look at networks like Facebook, it is actually pretty high. It's because their search space that they have to search for a particular face in the picture that you're uploading is actually only your friends. Majority of the times you're going to be taking pictures with the friends whom you're already either connected with, or probably they are in a 1 or 1.5 hop or 2 hops away from you. So that's happening on one side. And also this whole idea of cloud, storing information on the cloud, easily able to compute, computing cost is becoming lower and lower for doing any of these analysis. And on the fourth dimension of the problem is that identification of these users, who they are, what kind of information they're revealing, is also getting better. Meaning the concepts like k-anonymity came in 15 or 20 years before, whereas there are many further and advanced techniques that have been developed to identify users, to identify faces, to identify information about users, to re-identify people on social network, people on other networks. So those are the 4 different things that are colluding. 1, increase in self-disclosure, improving the accuracy of face recognition techniques, the whole idea of cloud and ubiquitous computing, and the techniques for re-identification of users is actually getting better and better. So the one important question and one interesting question that people could ask is, can one combine publicly available online social network data with the off-the-shelf face recognition technology, which is something that is already available, and be able to re-identify individuals and finding potentially sensitive information? So that's the question that we will be talking about in the next deck of slides, which is, can I take some publicly available information, which is that the things that I upload on Facebook, the things that I upload on Twitter, can I use that and connect it with the off-the-shelf face recognition technology, which is some tools like TensorFlow that I will also mention later in the slides. Use these techniques to identify just faces and be able to actually re-identify the person and or also find out sensitive information about the users themselves. That's the question that we'll be talking about right now. Here's the goal. The goal is to use unidentified sources, which is any websites that you could think of, match.com, shadi.com, photos from Flickr, CCTV feeds and things like that, which is it's impossible to identify, or it's very hard. The user themselves are not disclosing who they are in these websites. It could be that they have pseudonyms and names that you cannot identify or re-identify to that particular person. Can we actually take these sources, shadi.com and pictures from Flickr and Facebook, connect it to identified sources, which is on Facebook, I would actually reveal that I am so-and-so. On LinkedIn, I would put this as I am so-and-so. On government website and other services that are available, which is unidentified sources like shadi.com, identified sources, which is where I'm disclosing that I am so-and-so. And when I upload a picture, my account is ponurangam.com. Can we actually put these two together to get some sensitive information of the individual? Like, for example, gender orientation, like example, social security number, like example, Aadhaar number, and information like that. It can be pretty nasty if you can actually put this together and get some personal information. So that's what we will be studying in next couple of slides. Just to give you some very broad overview of some phenomenal work that was done in this topic, Latanya Sweeney, who did this work called k-anonymity, where she actually picked up the medical data and connected it to the voters list, which is publicly available. If you look at the medical data, she had ethnicity, visit date, diagnosis, procedure, medication, and the total charges that was paid by the patient. Name, address, date registered, party affiliation, date last voted. Taking this information, which is from voters list and from the medical data, putting it together, she found actually zip code, birth date, and gender was actually common among both of them. She was able to identify, if you give the system that she built only the zip, birth date, and gender, she was able to re-identify a lot of US citizens uniquely. So that's the idea that she built on to create something called as k-anonymity. But the problem that she highlighted was that bringing to these two different sets of data, which is independent medical data and voter data, you could actually re-identify users uniquely. In experiment 1, they actually connected the online data to the online data. They interestingly mined publicly available images from Facebook, and they want to re-identify profiles on one of the most popular dating sites in the US. They used this tool called pitpat.com, which was a face recognition tool. After the study was done, the tool was actually acquired by Google. It was doing face detection and face recognition. You could actually use TensorFlow now. TensorFlow is an open source library for machine learning techniques. Please consider exploring TensorFlow a little bit on how it works and what are the libraries that are available inside TensorFlow. The data that they used was first, as I said, they took the identified data, they downloaded the Facebook profiles from one city in the US, which is possible, meaning the way that you know about Facebook data collection now, you could actually collect data from a particular city. Profiles that they collected were about 270,000, images that were collected were 274,000. The faces that were detected was about 110,000 faces. So this is the data that they had for the identified data set, which is where you could actually say these are the names, these are the profiles that are connected to these pictures. Unidentified data, they downloaded the pictures of one of the popular dating websites. So first identified, okay, go back. The first is the identified data. Now we're talking about unidentified data, which is like the CCTV camera or publicly available information or from Match.com, Shadi.com. They downloaded the profiles and the pseudonyms of their, to protect their identities. Of course, the names were not going to be revealed. The accounts may actually have pseudonyms also. The photos that were downloaded from these websites were actually used to identify the profile. To make the connection appropriate, they actually used the same city for the search. The download data from Facebook and the city from this unidentified data set. The profiles that were collected here were about close to 6,000 and the faces that were detected were about close to 5,000. So that's identified and that's unidentified data. The approach that was taken was unidentified data, dating websites, identified data, the Facebook profiles, and the re-identification was to be done. More than 500 million pairs were actually compared because each picture in each of the profile, each of the data set were compared with each of the pictures in the other data set. From the unidentified to the identified and the reverse also. What they did was they did only use the best matching pair for each of the dating site picture. And pitpat, and I'm sure in TensorFlow also, it gives you in the specific values. It actually produces values in some range. They use the best value that they could get in terms of comparing two pictures. And to confirm, to get the ground truth, whether these pictures are just the same, because sometimes the techniques that are, machine learning techniques are not going to be foolproof and they're not going to make 100% right prediction. So therefore they actually showed these pictures to M-Turkers. M-Turkers are the users who are part of Mechanical Turk, which is a crowdsourced mechanism where you can actually put a small task for like this, identifying whether these two pictures are the same people, and you could actually pay them small money for doing the task. And they were asked to rate the pictures on a Likert scale of 1 to 7, at least 5 Turkers for each pair. Again, please try and look at what Mechanical Turk is. Mechanical Turk is a crowdsourced mechanism. For example, if I were to do a task in identifying whether a given email is phishing or not, I would actually show it to the I would create a task on Mechanical Turk and get users to actually look at the image and say whether it is phishing or not. Look at the profile on Twitter to say whether it is fake or not. They would actually go to the profile, they would click on the link and go to the profile in Twitter, look at the profile and then make a judgment whether it is legitimate or not. So this is a very popular, and there are many services like this. Crowdflower, which is a mechanism in which many of these services come together, it is also very popular. Crowdflower is one, CROWT, FLOWER is one of the popular services like this. Mechanical Turk, which is from Amazon, is also very popular. So they took these two pictures, showed it to users, Mechanical Turkers, asked them to actually compare the images and make the decision. So at least 5 Turkers for each pair, because that gives you more confidence. More and more people say that. More and more people take an image and say that this is a chair, and there is high confidence that that's going to be a chair. What they were able to find out was highly likely, which is on the Likert scale, is highly likely matches were about 6.3%. The images that they took from this unidentified and identified and randomly, they compared it using the PitPat tool and showed it the Mechanical Turkers. The comparison highly matches were about 6.3% and highly likely and likely matches were about 10.5%. Which basically says that 1 on 10 from the dating site can be identified. Because the dating site is an unidentified data set, whereas Facebook is my identified. So every time I see one of the pictures in the 10 pictures that I see, I will be able to actually clearly, exactly identify who this person is because I have the Facebook data. This is done for the same city, and therefore it should be probably correct, and Mechanical Turkers actually confirmed that. So you can see that 10% of the times the users can be actually identified. So one question to you, and I hope this question, there will be some discussion in forum also, is that what can you do better if you were the attacker? I mean, if you were to make use of this information and do something to increase either the efficiency or use this information to do something against the user, what kind of things would you do? Because as an attacker, you really want this percentage to be more, right? Because if it's 10%, you're getting a hit rate of only 10% or 1 in 10 pictures. Whereas if you were to have a better attack or threat mechanism, you could actually do things by which you can increase this percentage to more. So more and more pictures are actually re-identified, and therefore it can be actually used maliciously. Experiment 2, as I said, they did 3 things. So the second one, what they did was they connected the offline and the online. First one, they compared online versus online, which is a dating website, and Facebook. Now what they did was they did the offline and the online. Pictures from Facebook, one of the Facebook college network data was collected to identify students who are on campus, and it was actually compared to the offline pictures also, what was taken when the students were actually participating in the study. So this is the experiment number 2, all connecting to the same questions, which is can we actually take images, pictures from these social networks like Facebook and re-identify people who connecting to networks, to data where users cannot be identified, a CCTV feed, so to say. So what they did was they actually put a booth in the university, took 3 pictures of participants. They basically were standing there and then collecting data of the college students in this university, took 3 pictures per participant, collected data over 3 days. They collected about 25,000 profiles, images were about 26,262, and then the faces detected were about 114,000. So Facebook data for that university. So the data that they were collected from Facebook, which is online, is about 25,000. Images, profiles were about 25,000. Pictures were about 26,000. Faces were about 114,000. So just to summarize, or just to look at the whole experimental setup itself, was that pictures taken of individuals walking in campus, asked them to fill a survey. Next slide, I also have a image to actually show you what was the process of the study. But now pictures were taken of individuals walking on the campus. They were asked to fill an online survey. Pictures matched from cloud while they were filling the survey. Because what they did was they asked, okay, you want to participate in the study? Okay, I'll take you 3 pictures. When they took the pictures, then they asked them to fill an online survey. While they were actually filling the online survey technique, the system that they had built would go compare these pictures that they took to the Facebook pictures that they had already collected from the university itself and bring back the comparison and show it to them. Last page is the survey with options of their pictures. So by the time they actually filled the survey, they were actually shown the picture saying, oh, what? This is the picture that we got from Facebook. Do you actually agree to it? Asked to select the pics which match closely produced by the writing survey. So that's the process of the study, meaning please understand how the study was done. Collected pictures were taken individually walking on campus. Survey was, they were asked to fill a survey. While filling the survey, the system was comparing pictures on Facebook. The pictures were brought back to the survey, showed to the users and saying, tell us if these pictures are right about you. So it's same thing is captured here in the process format in the diagram, which is upload pictures of the users, pictures that were taken, which is 1, and then response is coming from the server, start survey, which is 3, and then 4 is generate survey token, so that through the survey token you will actually be able to say that comparing the images and bringing it back, which is 5 is looking at custom survey token is sent to the user who can actually fill the survey, and then by the time the 6 is happening, which is face recognition, results are being produced, and then survey results with the images that are actually produced, which is given to 7. So that's the process of the study. Not a very difficult, not a very complicated study, but it was actually collecting some very interesting data. So this is the result, what they did from the data collection. The left picture is the picture. I've anonymized the picture for the purpose of just re-identification of the user itself. The picture on the left is the picture that they took while the user was actually participating in the study. So when the user got in, they took a picture. That's on the left. Using that picture, they were able to actually identify the picture on the right, which is a picture from Facebook where this user was actually identified. So that's the output, so to say. The input is the picture with the survey, and the output is the image from Facebook, which is re-identified this person in a particular picture. This can be actually pretty revealing. The picture is compared on Facebook. So in about 98 participants, all students in the study, there were about 98 participants. All students were the ones who participated. They were collecting it from the university setup, and they all had Facebook accounts also. The results were 38% of participants were matched with the correct Facebook profile, which is the pictures that were taken. 38% of the people who took the pictures in the study were exactly matched with the Facebook profile, and the account, the information was actually brought back to confirm it with the user. Interestingly, there was also a participant who mentioned that he did not have a picture on Facebook, was actually information of that particular person, of that particular participant was also brought back. Of course, it was actually taking very less time to do this comparison. I hope the study is making sense, which is 38% of the times the users that were taking pictures from the university campus were identified from the Facebook profile. Experiment 3. Experiment 3 is interesting because they actually tried using the experiment understandings from experiment 1 and 2 to take it to this personally identifiable information like social security number. So in this experiment 3, they wanted to predict social security number from public data. So they used the faces and the Facebook data that were collected from experiment 1 and 2 with the public data to predict the social security number. 27% of subjects' first 5 social security number digits were identified with 4 attempts. So essentially, what does this mean? This means that every time I took a face from the database, I was able to identify the first 5 digits of the social security number 27% of the times. That's revealing. That's not a good sign where 27% of the subjects were able to find out 5 SSN digits of them. So that's the third experiment. I'm keeping the third experiment pretty light because in total the interesting things were pictures, unidentified data sets, identified data set, and then at the end they were able to actually connect it to social security number also. Interestingly, I'm sure you could also think about how these kind of techniques can be applied in terms of identifying Aadhaar number in India also, and other personal details. This study was done in the US, and therefore if you were to repeat this study and find out Aadhaar number or other details of Indian citizens, it will be actually interesting to look at that. If there's any ideas, if there's any questions that you have in terms of how a study could be performed in India, it will be interesting to talk about it in the forum. Here are the pointers for the study that I just now discussed about. And with this, I will actually wrap up the 4.1 week. I hope you understood what we're talking about. We're just talking about the privacy issues in online social networks, particularly focused on connecting images and identifying users using the face pictures, using the images that are uploaded on social networks.